Where's Angie? We can start?
I will introduce you.
Okay.
So, hello again, everyone. I hope you're feeling okay after the nice food and yummy food. I know that the panelists have a tough task to keep us all active and awake after this heavy meal. So we count on you on this. We'll be having our second panel today, which is about the art of publishing, creating sustainable and impactful cases. The panel will be moderated by Dr. Marina Apaydin, Associate Professor at the AC School of Business. And we're very much honored that we have our esteemed panelists with us. We have two of the leading figures of two prominent publishers, Emerald and Case Center. And we have an academic who is into the art of publishing and case usage. So please join me in welcoming them.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to AUC and to the panel. I'm very happy to have our guests with me today. Thank you, Inge, for the introduction. Since we just finished our amazing, tasty lunch, I think not to get asleep, let's start with some interactivity. If I may see by the show of hands, how many of you have written cases, not necessarily published, just written cases. So we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, like about 15 people. And out of those who didn't raise your hand, how many of you are interested in writing cases? Everybody, yeah, you see, that's the mood in the audience. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you're in the right place, because today we're going to talk with you with three specialists. We're going to start our panel. We're going to start our discussion with part one, which is about case writing. The panel will be divided into three parts. The first part will be about case writing, the second part about case publishing, and the third part about the future of the case method. Each part will take approximately 10 minutes. First, I'm going to ask my panelists some provoking questions. And then we're going to open it for the floor for you to ask questions. And of course, we continue with the second part and third part. Let's start with the case writing. And I want to open it with Vicky, the CEO of the Case Center and the editor-in-chief of the Case Focus Journal. With a direct question, what is the optimal structure of a case study?
Okay. So, yes, I've got notes too, because, I mean, it's a brilliant question to start us off, but I do feel the pressure a little bit because there's quite a few experts in the room that know the optimal structure for a traditional paper-based case. So feel free to chip in if you want to add anything to what I start us off with. So ultimately, they are short stories, short, engaging stories, I should add. And unlike traditional stories that we read, they have no ending. They really take students, the learner, on a voyage of discovery. And like all good stories, should start with that opening paragraph that is that massive hook to make the student want to read on further. The opening paragraph is very key. So that really is setting the scene. It's introducing the protagonist in the case that's facing a dilemma, uncertain outcome, problem, whatever you'd like to call it. So really in that first paragraph, you should have pretty much a good idea of where the case is going to go. They're written in the past tense. So after that opening paragraph, you're really then taking the reader through a journey of discovery of what led up to the opening paragraph, that scene being set, that dilemma being faced. Different data, different contextual information, facts, figures, are all then unwoven in the case as you're reading through. And you then get to the ending where it just then should link back to the opening paragraph of, right, this is where we're ending, this is where the decision point is needing to be made. And in an ideal situation, that's then when the students really then say, all right, what am I going to do next? And then they start that rich class discussion. What really needs to be clear from the case, which is where the teaching note comes in, so I can't not mention the teaching note when talking about the optimal structure of a case, there has to be a teaching note. So the reason why that case is being written, what was the need for that case study? So the learning objectives within the teaching note need to be matched back to the case study to make sure that case is going to deliver the learning objectives from the intention of that case being written. So really, they're the main ingredients, I would say, to an optimal structure of a case study. Short, engaging story with no ending, that hook, and clear learning objectives being achieved.
Sounds good, right?
Okay, is that right?
Sounds good and sounds very straightforward. We're going to see what kind of caveats can be encountered during the process of structuring the case this way. So my next question is for Rami. How do you balance the need for a comprehensive narrative with a focus on the key learning points? So here our trade-off between writing a very long and interesting, engaging story and writing a shorter version or a shorter case. Of course, you want to tell the whole story and you want to tell about everything about your company or the protagonist in the case. Let's listen to Rami and learn a few things, right?
Thank you, Marina. I think I share the same feeling with Vicky that so many experts in the room. So for me to answer such a question, please correct me if I'm wrong or add to my answer if you want. But I think it's for the author to balance between the narrative of the case itself, which should be presented to the students in a very attractive and short way, and also a detailed teaching notes that can guide the professor or the teacher through the lesson plan and the tasks to grasp the student attention. It's also important to note that there should be no narrative in the case that is not included in the teaching notes or vice versa. So the student should see the attractive story, and the teacher should guide him through the teaching notes, through the lesson plan, to achieve his desired learning goals.
Thank you very much, Rami. That was concise and to the point. Thank you very much. Now moving on to my colleague, Dr. Hakim. If you can share with us, how do you usually balance descriptive and analytical elements? As you know, the cases are not just simple stories that we read for the pleasure. The cases include the analytical elements and how much of this analytics should be inside the story. That's the question for Dr. Hakim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marina, for the question. Again, I shared the pressure with my colleagues, but usually when I approach the case, I approach it from a movie director point of view. So the first thing I start with is that I create the story of the whole movie. So the whole story, what is the beginning, what's the mid, and what's the ending. So that's the first approach. Then I use the descriptive part when it comes to setting the scene. So like Vicky said, in the first paragraph, when you set up the scene, you introduce the protagonist, sometimes put some drama around the protagonist, explain the personality of the protagonist. Then in the following paragraphs, which set up the context, the background of the industry, I use some descriptive writing. Afterwards, I suggest to introduce in the mid the analytical part, which should relate to maybe facts related to the situation in hand. So for example, if a decision was taken, what's the background for this decision? What are the options that were available? And then, of course, support this with data such as maybe tables, financial tables, and so on. So to maintain this balance, I don't write the case immediately. I write, of course, if there is, it depends on the type of the case, because there are two types. What we call retrospective case, which presents everything, and the decision force case, where a decision is needed at the end of the dilemma. And what I do actually is I try to first use descriptive part to introduce people, context. I use the analytical part to introduce facts, outcomes, analysis, including quantitative analysis if there are statements, for example, pictures of material and so on that are used. So this is how to create it. And I always try to merge them seamlessly in every paragraph. So the paragraph may be starting with a descriptive part describing the situation, and then an analytical part will merge seamlessly in the paragraph to explain the outcome of a decision, the logic behind the decision taken, and so on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hakim. That was, I think, very interesting and engaging. Now circling back to Vicky, to complete the case writing module that we have, what are, in your opinion, what are the challenges and opportunities in developing diverse and inclusive studies that, especially now more and more, we are focusing on inclusion? And this is one of the major themes in the school. So would like to hear from Vicky on this subject, and then we'll open the floor for questions about specifically case writing.
Okay, thank you. So one of the many, many benefits of cases is how they act as a brilliant vehicle to bring real-world topics and different issues into the classroom. And particularly, we're finding more and more I'll say DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, into the classroom. And cases are a brilliant tool to do that, particularly when there are issues around sensitivity. So the opportunities really with cases that address these are around empathy, in that you're fostering greater understanding of diverse experiences and perspectives. The global relevance, so showcasing cross-cultural decision-making and leadership. Inclusivity, so you're preparing students to thrive in multicultural, globalized environments. And really, the essence of why we use the case method, critical thinking. So really encouraging those discussions, and in this case, particularly about equity, inclusion, and social impact. There's many other opportunities. I've just tried to group my thoughts into some 4 bullet points. And then the challenges are actually quite vast from the experience that we have talking to faculty that are developing the cases, as well as those that are teaching with them. So when it comes to writing these cases, it's the avoiding the stereotypes, so avoiding oversimplified or inaccurate portrayals of cultures and communities. One of the key challenges is actually finding the cases to write about. So finding those diverse protagonists, industries and regions to feature. Accessibility, ensuring global relevance while respecting local nuances as well. And bias awareness is a key challenge that we hear a lot about. So identifying and addressing unconscious biases in case development. And even though it links to teaching, it's really being aware when you're developing the cases, particularly the teaching notes, how you can support faculty taking that case into the classroom when there are different sensitivities involved. So I've just been reading some cases for our latest case competitions, and there was one case, just to give you an example, it was 3 mini cases in one, which actually I really loved, 3 little mini HR cases. But what the case writer did in the teaching note was really enhance some extra tips and techniques of bringing those topics into the classroom and what to be thinking about in advance, how to prep your students for bringing these topics into the classroom with the extra sensitivity around them. So the teaching note really plays a strong part with some cases that are coming into the classroom to really help faculty bring them in. So highly recommend if you're developing cases, particularly that have sensitivity around them, think about what extra information can go in the teaching note really to support faculty bring these important topics into the classroom.
Thank you, Vicky. That concludes our first part of the panel about case writing. I would like to open the floor for about 5 minutes for the questions. If you can please identify yourself and which organizations you are coming from, and also tell us whom do you specifically address your question to. Who would like to start? I thought everybody wanted to learn how to write cases. Yeah, anybody? Case writing, anybody? Yeah, thank you for the courageous participant.
Thank you for volunteering. So I would like to ask a question about how to select a successful subject for your case study. So nowadays, everybody's running after the sustainability and the greenwashing and the green products, and suddenly all the search engines are filled with these case studies or these papers. Certainly, there are other attractive subjects and attractive areas to apply this in. For myself, I'm thinking about writing a case study on the local emerging brands that had this opportunity in the market after the boycotting movement, because my basic principle I teach is the marketing. But everybody tries keep advising me to steer away from this subject because it's beginning to look like the Oscars. There are some areas that you should write in, and these areas are the ones who are successful and get published. So I would like to know your perspective on such a point, and what makes successful area, or what nominates a successful area to write a case study in. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And whom are you addressing your question? Anybody or somebody in particular? Anybody who wants to take it up?
I can start with a short answer, basically. It's a very interesting question, very important question as well. Cases are built to serve linking the research world to the real life of today for people. And it should have a real impact. So it depends on what are the hot topics in each community. In Egypt, for example, we are now striving to increase the industry or to expand the industry and export. So this is one of the hot topics. So how can we support this with case studies? I think this is a very important topic at this moment. Every day, I think there are tens, if not hundreds, of research papers and books which are published everywhere, globally. Only very few would have a real-world impact. I think cases comes on the top of that list. So just look at the community where you want to address, and see what are the topics, the hot topic for this community, and then this would be the best choice for your case studies.
Thank you. Yeah, and just really to add, it comes back to the need that you have and the learning objectives you have that you want to bring into the classroom for your students. So even though there's different hot topics and different things trending, you still have to focus on what it is that you want to teach your students, because then that will make the case be right for the audience. Hot topics do need to come into the classroom. Students want to be talking about topics that they're passionate about, what they're talking about with their peers, what they're reading on the news, hearing on the news. So you want some of those topics coming in, but it's still mapping it back to what's the learning objective you want to bring in to help make sure you write the right case or adopt the right case to bring in.
Thank you very much. Somebody else decided to ask Irene. You want to ask a question?
Thank you for an interesting discussion. My question to Romy, and we were discussing this a while ago outside, and actually my question relates to the title of the panel, which is The Art of Publishing. What would make a case to be published? Let us know about some of the tips and tricks that can easily make the cases published. Is it a short case, a long case? What would make it more easier to publish a case?
Thank you, Irene. This is actually an excellent transition question, because our second module is called Case Publishing. Okay. So as if you knew that, right? So thank you very much. I'm going to let maybe Vicky answering it. And the first question that I prepared for you is, what key criteria do you consider when selecting a case study for publication? So maybe you combine it with answering Irene's question.
Yep. Lovely, thank you. Yes, so we can both chip into this one probably. So as far as us at the Case Centre, we have different avenues of publishing with us for distribution. So we have many partner collections who take care of all of the editing, finalising the case, making sure it's meeting all of the submission requirements that we have. So actually, when the partner collections cases come to us, they go straight through to publication because we know they've done everything for those cases to be the right quality. The individual author route through to us, they're authors that perhaps don't have a case centre at their school or more resources to support them with that. But ultimately for us, when cases are submitted through our online case submission process through our website, we'd love the case to be good to go, but we know that's not always the case, no pun intended. So we have our robust submission guidelines. Part of that includes a mandatory teaching note, and also that the case must have been taught at least twice in the classroom, which sends it through an editing process. If all the other submission criteria are met, when the case comes to us, it could be published within 4 to 6 weeks. Not 46, sorry, 4 to 6 weeks. I said it too quickly. But we have a 70% rejection rate because I think people are quite keen to just get their case out there and published and it'd be fine, let's just get it out there. Because we have the largest, most diverse collection of cases, we have to be mindful to make sure we're just getting quality cases in and it's not about quantity. So just to say that initially, we do have our peer review journal, which is Case Focus. That's for the Middle East and Africa. We publish that once a year, and we do peer review those cases. But because of the quantity we have coming in, we can't peer review everything. So we really just make sure submission requirements are met, all of those things, that the case itself has a clear learning objective, that it is a case that's a decision case, there's a dilemma to be faced, that the quality, it's high quality writing, coherent storytelling, so back to them being short stories, that the guidelines are met, and really just relevance to the industry. Lost my train of thought, really sorry, 2 seconds. We have, for our individual authors, when those cases come through, if we bounce them back a maximum of 3 times if the submission requirements aren't met. But what we're introducing in January is an extended service for our individual authors that perhaps don't have that extra support within their school. So as well as the case having been taught twice, have a teaching note, meet all the submission requirements, we're then doing some extra work before it is then published, just to really help fine-tune the case for the authors, just really to enhance the quality even further, to ultimately aid its adoption and having further impact. So we're going to be doing that as a free additional service to further support getting those cases published. So that's quite a long answer. Sorry, would you like to add something, Rami?
I think Vicky answered in a very detailed way, so thank you very much for taking the effort. She's responsible for all difficult questions, by the way.
Bring them on, come on. All right, this is great. Thank you very much, Irene. I hope we answered partially, right, your question. And we're going to move on with our colleague, Dr. Hakim. I'm going to ask him another provocative question, as usual, right?
She always likes to provoke me. Yeah.
How do you balance the need for academic rigor with the practical relevance? This is usually very important to understand from the beginning, so you don't write a case which is academic paper, and also at the same time you don't write very practical case without any academic background. Very important balance to establish. Please, Dr. Hakim.
Well, of course, it's not easy, because usually, at least for myself, when I approach the case, it's usually a real world case. So it's a case related to a real business that is ongoing. I don't like to write fictional cases. I like to really meet the actual protagonists, understand what are they facing, and so on. So after I meet this protagonist, I go into a phase of literature review, researching the literature. And there is a very small tip. I don't know if it's useful for everyone, but what I personally do is I go in this part of the literature related to the topic that I want to talk about, and I go to the practical implication section in the articles. I'm not talking about cases now, I'm talking about the academic articles. I go to the practical implication part, and I just copy and paste them in a separate document. So this is what I do. And then I try to link this to the story of the people who are working or the protagonist. And this is how I try to maintain this kind of balance between academic rigor and the actual practical applications of the business. And then, of course, in my mind are the learning objectives, which are covered by the academic part. And this is how I really do it. So I don't start immediately with writing the case. There is a part of research. There is a part with factual data collection from the protagonist, from the business. And then, before writing the case, I decide on the learning objectives, and then I start writing, which maintains somehow the balance. And again, this merging of theory and practice while writing takes time, of course. But this is how I do it, at least.
Thank you very much, Hakim.
There are questions.
Can we keep the questions until we cover this publishing? Thank you. It's just another 5 minutes, I guess. So this was the view from the case authors, in plural, right? Case authors on this side of the table.
Yes.
And then I want to ask another provocative question to the case publishers. And I'm looking at Rami because I want to ask you if a peer review process for case studies sufficiently rigorous and objective.
Well, I think this also covers part of your question about submitting a case. And I'm talking here about the perspective from Emerald side, so Emerald Publishing. We have our emerging market case studies and the case journal, both are fully double-blind, peer-reviewed. So we do have an editorial team who are looking to recruit reviewers based on their field of expertise in order to review the submitted cases. Sometimes, and Dr. Marina is complaining about this, sometimes the process, because we want to make it rigorous enough, it takes time. But we want to ensure the case that is submitted and published has the required quality to our standard. We also have an in-house built research integrity software that flag issues like if, for example, a reviewer is reviewing a paper or a case from an author within the same institution, or if a reviewer have reviewed many cases for the same author, then we start to look at such issues. A very important topic also to measure the quality of the case is the indexation. Scopus, for example, where most universities would guide their faculty to publish in a Scopus indexed journal or collection, has a very strict parameters for any publications to be included. For us at Emerald, both collections, the emerging market case studies and the case journal, are indexed in a Scopus. So I think it's basically a mutual benefit. Although we take more time to publish, but we ensure the quality.
And I think it's worth mentioning that Emerald is one of the only or few publishers who are actually indexed in Scopus, because they have the academic arm in parallel, right? They publish also articles. That's why the approach is so rigorous, but the benefit of it, it's like high risk, high reward. We should
thank Michael, actually, who had been behind that in the past.
All right. Okay, the last question for this module is, again, for our case author. That was the view, right, from the publisher side. Now let's look at the view from the writer side. What are the key factors that reviewers consider, in your opinion, when evaluating case studies for publication? How can authors improve their chances of acceptance?
Okay, so I think, of course, like my colleagues have mentioned before, the relevance of the topic to the current challenges, current material taught. So definitely relevance. I would guess also originality of the case itself, how it brings a different perspective, the topic itself. The structure, of course, of the case, how well structured the case. Again, the balance between academic rigor and practical application is something very important. The strength of the teaching note and how linked is the case to the learning objectives in the teaching note. And finally, of course, the contribution of the case to knowledge, if any. At least this is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Hakim. So I would like now go back to the questions for the module of case publishing, and we start with the lady who raised your hand first. Please go ahead.
I'm associate professor at the British University in Egypt. I have could be a weird question being at the conference of case study, which is, the AUC is different than the rest of the Egyptian universities because in the other universities, in order to get promoted, you need to do research paper. So the problem, INGI has approached us a long time ago, and unfortunately we didn't take it further because the staff will not waste their time learning how to write case studies if this is not going to be counted in their promotion. Yet, we know that case study is really important. So my question is, why to bother learning how to write a case where there are ready-made case studies in Harvard, Emerald, or Ivy? Am I pronouncing it right? I mean, there are already ready-made case studies where I can use in my teaching instead of learning how to write case study. Maybe if I'm going to answer myself, and then I will let you to give me more answers if I'm missing more advantages. I think the only advantage that I can see is writing a case study that is tailored to my country, to the local market or the local industry. This is the only advantage I can see. Nevertheless, living in globalization, and most of our graduates are going to work in multinational organizations. If they remain in Egypt, still ready-made case studies will do the job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shireen. It's a pleasure having you here. And if I may allow myself to answer the question as well, I'm a professor, I'm a case writer. I've been writing cases with my students since time immemorial, 2009 maybe. And I think that was on the agenda in the very beginning, like should we do this if we have no benefits? I think as a good citizens of this region, as you already mentioned, there is a paucity of cases in the region. There is not enough cases. And sometimes the issues or or topics which are written by Harvard and Ivy, first, they become old, and second, they're not relevant for us. What we start doing since that time, we start writing cases just as good citizens. And eventually, at AUC, cases are considered towards promotion. Of course, they are not the basis for promotion, but they are considered intellectual contribution of a lower rank, of practical side, on teaching, contribution to teaching, not contribution to research, but it's still considered, because after all, you are putting your intellect into writing a case. I will, what else? Yeah, there was something, Inge, you want to say? Yeah, if you want to add, get the microphone. Before you add, Inge, I just give you like a recent event which happened last week. We are studying already quite Egyptian local cases of Azza Fahmi and breakfast in a class of international business. And then one of the students who couldn't make it decided to come and bring a story of B11, which I never heard personally about. So the guy comes and he tells a story, just makes a presentation about the company, and the whole class for 45 minutes have been engaged discussing B11 with a very smart comments, and we don't have a case about B11, so somebody should go and write this case. If it attracts so much attention from the students, it means obviously they can get engaged with a topic which is young, new, very different. Inge?
Yes, if you would allow me, answering your question, definitely it has to be counted one way or another, whether it's intellectual contribution or even in enhancing the teaching experience. Having a good teaching experience in itself, this is a reward. So it should come in a different workaround when you have better feedback from the students, better learning experience, better learning outcomes. This is also something that pays off. Why write cases about the region? Because again, definitely students will be, many of them will be traveling abroad, many of them will be working with multinationals, but even with multinationals, what works in one part of the world might not necessarily work here. And we all probably know, being part of this region, that we violate all the 1+1s that usually go. And just a very simple example, remember when McDonald's introduced the McFalafel? So we're living in globalization, but again, localization. So we need to have the flavor of the region, and this would never come from someone except from those living in the region. Nermeen, you want to add?
Sorry, just adding one quick point. Maybe that could be the right time, especially as we have associate deans and I think deans in the early morning. Maybe that could be taken further to المجلس الأعلى للجامعات. I think this matches very well the current updates and the current trend that is taking place at the higher level, the ministerial level, and maybe that could be added. And you never know, as long as it's a peer-reviewed case study published in an international venue, then it could be counted in a way or another.
I think especially, Nermeen, because we just mentioned that Emerald is actually indexed in Scopus and there is a ranking. Yeah.
Dr. Hakim, I think.
Yes, I just have one plus for writing a case aside from the promotion. A lot of the faculty are stuck inside their offices at the university. They are stuck doing research, publishing, and teaching. But a very important aspect of being a good teacher is also looking at the practice. So writing the cases provides a great opportunity for faculty to interact with the world of practice, see real world things, and start to write and reflect about them. So I think that's very important to stay relevant inside the classroom for students, because these students are seeing what's happening around them. And the moment, as an instructor, you become irrelevant or so theoretical inside the classroom without bringing practical relevance, the moment you lose them. And I think we all notice this while teaching, with the smaller and shorter attention span of the students who are now used to TikTok changing every 10 seconds. So you need to be very agile when it comes to teaching inside the classroom and bring practical information, practical relevance. And one of the ways of doing this is actually writing the case, which allows you to interact with the outside world in a better way.
And Dr. Rami?
Yeah, well, just a very quick comment about this question. I think it's not a problem, it's not an issue for Egypt only. It's an issue for the globe, if not among all universities. And the reason behind that is that universities are interested to publish more research papers so they get higher on the ranks, different ranking systems. So I think it should be a global movement, and universities should speak to ranking organizations like the Time Higher Education, Shanghai ranking, whatever, in order to manage the inclusion of cases, of publishing cases into, or to be counted for the university.
Thank you very much, Rami. And with that, we're going to proceed to our last module, which is the future of case method, and then we'll ask other questions at the end. First, again, staying with the idea of new generation and digital disruptions and AI, I want to ask Rami also about that. How traditional case studies will fare in this age of digital transformation and disruption? And what are the potential benefits and risks of AI-powered case studies?
Well, thank you, Dr. Marine. I think I would divide it into two questions. One is traditional cases are still relevant or not in today's world. I think it's definitely yes, because this is the link between a real world or a real business dilemma and to teach it to our students. So we are exposing them to real business dilemmas that can teach them how to deal with it in their future career. In Emerald, for example, we do not publish fictional cases. And this is our policy since ever. We only publish real world cases because we believe this is the only way to develop or to deliver a real world impact, both for the students and afterward when he's graduated, when he starts working. Second, AI. AI currently is the biggest debate for all publishers. I think, in my view, it is an opportunity and it's also a threat. It's an opportunity because it can help authors in copy editing, for example, in translations, in developing interesting infographics or animations to their paper or cases. But the threat is also, it cannot be considered as an author or co-author because of copyright issues, because of research integrity issues. So currently, our policy at Emerald is that we do not accept any AI-written paper, and we ask authors to disclose any use of AI in their cases, whether it's in the body of the case or in the research method. And based on that, we decide whether it's too much or too less to be included in our collection. I think it's, as I mentioned, it's the biggest debate currently for all publishers, and there are so many policies each publisher is trying to develop, and it will evolve with time. But at this moment, we don't think AI can develop an authentic and ethical research paper, whether it's a research article or a case.
Thank you very much, Rami, for your opinion. And the last question we're going to address to Vicky, also about the future of the case method. How can case studies be effectively taught in a remote or hybrid learning environment? Pretty much on the end of Rami's discussion.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree with both opportunities and threats from the world of AI, generative AI. We're doing the same, actually. We're making sure we capture from any submissions coming in if AI has been used. We're trying to learn from the author community as well and then share back as to the best practices when it comes to using that additional tool that I like to think of as when the calculator come along or the Excel spreadsheet. It's just an extra tool that can use us in our day-to-day lives, and it's learning how to use it professionally and ethically and teaching our students to do the same because it's a tool they're going to have in their workplaces. When it comes to teaching with cases, online, in person, hybrid, the case method is one of the most versatile pedagogies there is, and many were using it to teach online before the pandemic, but I think what happened is it got definitely accelerated through the pandemic with the engagement which was needed. So I think it was that kind of light bulb moment that you have to engage your students, whether you're in the room or online. So we curated lots of resources very rapidly when the pandemic was taking place to support faculty that were taking their case study either into the online environment or if they were completely new to it. So, and those resources are still available online. So if it's something that you're looking at, whether it's hybrid, all in person, all online, then there's lots of resources also on our website that you can dive into and have a look. And there's just extra tools online that you can make use of. You've got your breakout rooms, you've got whiteboards, you've got everything that you need at your fingertips. So, and again, it's just back to the planning and preparation of that session, knowing your students, and all of the timings that you have to deliver those engaging class discussions, what's going to be asynchronous or synchronized, all of that goes into the mix. But it just gives a load more options really to keep the case method alive as technology evolves, all the different tools that we're equipped with. It's weighing up, as we do, particularly as publishers, the pros and cons, where there's opportunities, where there's threats, and really maximizing those opportunities at the end of the day to really enhance a student's learning and really setting them up for their future careers.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Now we're turning to you. Please go ahead with your question.
The British University in Egypt. And my question, first of all, I second what Dr. Shireen has said, because in the British University, we mostly rely on ready-made cases, either Harvard publishing reviews or the cases that are attached in our interactive books that we teach our students, and they are working quite well with us. My question is as follows. Our students, since we are teaching large classes, lose interest in long and lengthy cases. Sometimes I have to summarize it. Sometimes I have to cut half of it, or even more, 75% of it, or even twist it around. what could we do to provide them with many scenario cases that are part of the cases, ready-made cases, but at the same time fitting our ILOs, fitting the chapters we are teaching, because it takes a lot of time from us as tutors to customize them into many cases so that students could do it. Because even when we give them these cases as a blended learning, they don't do it.
Yeah.
2 pages is too much for them.
And Dr. Maha, you're absolutely right. I think students nowadays are actually reading less and less, and this is unfortunate. I also agree that sometimes older cases are longer. I think all the publishers, and I'll give the floor to the publishers to answer, are using shorter and shorter case requirements. For example, Ivy only allows 8 pages of text. But at the same time, I think you can assign certain pages. Instead of saying read the whole thing, read this page 1 to 5, and then the rest you discuss in class. But I want to turn to the publishers to answer from their side.
Okay, so definitely on the same page. We're hearing this around the world. Attention spans are changing in students. They do not want to read, but they have to, sorry. So the traditional lengthier cases aren't going anywhere. They still serve a purpose. Students need to know they have to take a lot of data, analyse it, and extract what they need to make informed decisions. What we are seeing is uptake more of the shorter cases. They already exist, so you don't necessarily need to create new ones if you don't need to. There's a whole variety of cases written from schools around the world that are a 1-page long case that still deliver a learning objective. The average length we now have being adopted is 11 pages. And again, it comes back to your audience. Know your audience, know your students. What is it, the learning objectives? And that will dictate whether it needs to be a short case, long case, how big's the class size, undergraduate, postgrad, whatever level it might be. The variety is already there. We're encouraging more. The very first case study out of Harvard was a 1-pager, so short cases aren't new. The uptake of them is just increasing because of the attention spans changing in students. So particularly on our site, you can search, and if you just want to search for a 1-page case, you can put that in the search criteria and you'll just get the 1-pagers back. So lots of tools out there to help you still engage your students with them just reading a little bit, add in some multimedia there as well. It's all about variety. We're seeing an evolution of case writing go on. But the paper-based cases aren't going anywhere, but it's mixing it up with a paper case, a video, a simulation, multimedia, all different bits still bring the case method into the classroom. Yes, we have emeralds, we have cases, one-stop shop. If you want one place to search, have a look on our website, highly recommend.
Thank you very much. Vicky, lady on the left.
Thank you, Marina. Reem Beder, Assistant Professor at Cairo University. Basically, I have 2 questions for the publisher. We have like a time lag between submitting a paper and getting accepted to be published. So how do you think that we can overcome this obstacle, because the case study will be outdated in some cases? Another question, that how can you make a balance between the reliability of the data about the case study and also the confidential aspect of the data? Because you said that it's a double-blind review process. So some kind of person data or personnel data about the corporate is really confidential. So how do you make balance that the case study is real and reflect the reality of the market, and also not to be published, or someone can get this data? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take that one. I think the first question is about the time lapse between submission and publishing. With the cases, it's usually much quicker than a research article. So with a research article, it might take more time. And now on Emerald platform, you would see in each journal we have mentioned the estimate time of publishing from the day of submission. With the cases, this is much shorter, but although it needs still to go through the peer-reviewed process. In terms of confidential information, we usually ask the author, or we must ask the author to submit a clearance form, an acceptance form that any information included in his cases will be published as it is, and he has all the required approvals from whether it's the company or where he built the case from.
Thank you very much. Ramil, last question, lady.
I have a very quick question to Dr. Romi. I'm Nuran Darwish from the German University in Cairo. I have a very quick question. What about the paraphrasing tools? Yani, the whole case doesn't have to be AI written, but so what if I used paraphrasing tools? So recently, as researchers, we started using Quillbot and stuff like these. How about this? Is it acceptable?
So ultimately, when we're going through case submissions to us, we're trusting our case faculty are honest and disclosing how they've used AI. Ultimately, if that case ticks all the boxes to make it a brilliant case, and it's got the teaching objectives there, it all aligns with the teaching note, then you could use AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. Unfortunately, our panel came to an end, but it doesn't mean you should stop socializing with our panelists. You can approach them individually and ask your questions directly. You know who they are. So please join me in thanking them for sharing their time and wisdom with you. And I'm going to turn it to Inji.
Okay, so now we'll be having a session with Dr. Shilpi, and she's going to pronounce the second name. It's not going to be a regular case writing workshop. However, it's going to be an interactive session. She's going to be talking about a very interesting topic that I believe most of us have never been exposed to before. It's tackling on the issue of sustainability. So now I leave the floor to Dr. Shilpi. Thank you.
All right, so thank you all very much. Can we just have the slides up? Yeah. Thank you all very much for being absolutely awake after that amazing lunch, right? So I've been in the country just for over a day now, and I can understand the hospitality, and that begins with food, which is just amazing. This is the last session, so thank you all for staying back. I promise I'm going to make it short. I won't take the whole 1 hour for you guys. And if you look at the agenda, it says case writing, so please don't be appalled. I will not ask you guys to write anything, believe me, right? So it's going to be all interaction, and there are certain important topics that I'm going to introduce to you guys. I want to roll some new discussions in today's session here. So I want everybody to interact, everybody tell me what you guys think about the new ideas that I'm exploring with you all here regarding case studies. So I'm Shilpi, and I'm coming from Dubai. My journey with case studies started 18 years back. I used to be the case center manager at University of Hong Kong Business School. That's the first time I wrote my case about a company called Arthur D. Little, a consulting firm, and how they liberalized the telecom sector of Saudi Arabia. And that became a bestseller at Harvard Business Review journal article, and it still is one of the bestsellers there. So what I'm trying to tell you is I wrote a business case about Saudi Arabia, and that was really appalled because nobody knew what's going on in Saudi Arabia. You see, at that point of time, 17 years back, I love case study, and I do engage with it. A lot of my cases right now are at the case center. I engage these days. I have moved a bit away from just mainstream strategy cases to more sustainability-related cases, and that's where I joined Hult International Business School. So for those of you who are not aware of who Hult is and what we do, so that's Hult. Harry Potter was shot in our Ashridge campus, actually. So we have got that castle out there in Ashridge, outskirts of London. We mostly do corporate training programs. Cases are very close to our heart. We have got more than 175 faculty members in our campuses in Boston, in SFO. We have 2 campuses in London, Central London, Chelsea, East London, where we do our UG program. And we have got a smaller setup in Dubai. And I'm constantly traveling around, but I'm stationed in Dubai. So we have been involved in cases for a very long period of time. We have got some award-winning cases with our faculty. And these days we are completely with the Case Center. We publish through them. A bit about what our collection is. So it's basically we are capturing a lot of key trends. We are going with the flow, what's new. We want to understand what's the 21st century looking like. So we definitely want to move with the flow. So we are engaging with a lot of different kind of cases these days, for example, with the sustainability agenda, which has become a mainstream discussion if you look at it. What I am proposing today, in the next 40 minutes, what we do is, we just do a discussion, brainstorming session. I have called it the Global South, and I'm going to come to that. So I name my talk, Emerging Themes in the Global South Context. Now, this is very important, and there is a reason why I have chosen the word Global South. The word Global South brings in a lot of amalgamation of cultures, a lot of amalgamation of, if I can use the word, non-Western concept of looking and contextualizing a topic. And that is the reason I think Global South is a great way to start today's discussion, because we are in Egypt, and we have culturally, possibly you would agree, pretty different ways of looking at how we run businesses and how organizations around us function. So I want to have a bit of a talk about what are the emerging themes that you look at around you, wherever you are from. How do we create the meaningful and impactful contributions to case study publication, which we have talked a lot, and what are the challenges and opportunities? It's not all a very smooth road. Of course, it's pretty rocky. So that's what we will do in the next 40 minutes or so. When we look at the emerging themes in the Global South context, there is a lot of new paradigms, a lot of new themes, a lot of new topics which has emerged in the last 5 years' time period. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. There are lots and lots of complexities that the Global South faces, which is very different from the Western context or any other context. We talked about the good, the bad, the ugly side of business. And when we talk about business and sustainability, we always have these questions about, are all good businesses good? Now, I am a critical researcher, and what I'm going to talk about today is going to come from the critical perspective, which is also very important for developing case studies. We all have seen that. Can I ask you all, how many of you are actually doing any kind of research or case writing in that little box there, number 10, reduced inequalities? I've got one hand there, that's promising. So I'm picking up my research in that little box, number 10, and the next 40 minutes of my talk is going to be just emphasizing on the box 10. That's the reason. So I'm picking up on number 10, because it's a very important emerging theme in the Global South context, which I think we are not talking enough about. Does it make sense? Yeah? So that's the reason I'm asking you, how many of you are actually thinking about number 10? Are you engaging in any kind of research? Right. Promising. Now, in the Global South, we have got a lot of issues going on which the Western world doesn't really face, doesn't really talk about. and possibly it is lying more with the developing countries context. Now, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it. I am going to discuss my ongoing research here, giving you some examples, and then I will tell you that how I'm developing research on issues of inequalities, social inequalities to be in particular.
Yeah, sorry, I disagree with you. Inequality is everywhere, starting from the United States. So don't tell me that it is a developing country's problem.
No, so, sorry, you got it wrong. I said it is stark in the developing countries, actually, right? And it's very much on your face in the developing countries context as well. Of course, it's a global phenomena. It is a global phenomena, absolutely.
They claim that it doesn't exist, but it does.
It does, right. But it's definitely a global South has got a different cultural perspective, and that's the reason we're talking about global South here with the social inequality problem. I am going to discuss a little bit about my research here, and maybe you will get the context here. I have been working for the past 3 years for looking at something called mica. Mica is a mineral. It's a huge industry. And mica is used in a lot of the cosmetic products. So what makes you beautiful, ladies, here, the blush that you're putting, the lipstick that you're wearing, that makes you all shine today, is actually coming from those rocks there, yeah? And that gets produced in my own home country in India, which is Jharkhand. And all the world's mica come from that little 2 states in India. It also comes from Madagascar, by the way. The usage of mica is massive. It is used in all different industries. So when you look at the shine on any car, that's coming from mica. Any makeup product, any cosmetic, that's any shine, any sparkle you're finding around you, mica gives you, right? Brilliant. It's a huge industry, right? And people have made a lot of money doing mica mining from India. There is a problem. And the problem is, as dramatic as I might be sounding, all that shine that's coming on your face, those little children are getting into the derelict mines to mine that mica for you. Every month, there are 10 children dying in those derelict mines to make you shine. As dramatic as I might sound, have a look at Reuters report, have a look at BBC, have a look at CNN report. We don't talk about it. Who gets mica from there? Sephora, Lush, Clinique, Steel Lauder. Everybody is getting the mica from my home city. Yeah? Startling, isn't it? I hope I woke you guys up, all right? It's estimated that 25% of the world's production of mica is sourced from these illegal mines. They're all mafia-dominated mines, which actually has been controlling these children and this family for centuries. And here I am going to come to the social inequality part here. Why do these children always work for the mica mines? Was always a question. What's going on here? There are tribals who live deep in the forest. All the MNC and MNEs control this certain section of people who are mining mine there, right? And they're making a lot of money off them. The question was, we wanted to get deep into it. And when we went deeper into it, we realized it was, these are just some figures to let you know that how big the issue is. So the Global Slavery Index actually calls it modern day slavery. So this kind of a work, there is a name going on, which is called the modern slavery. And they say that out of 28 million people working in the forced labor, 12 million are children across the world, right? So there is a huge issue going on in supply chain management and modern slavery issue. So this work that the kids are doing is not just child labor, it is children working in extreme form of exploitation. And the word used here is modern day slavery. And there has been a constant boom of literature going on around modern slavery for the last 7, 8, 10 years. It's really picked up on a global scale. we dig deeper into it. So we go in, and we are questioning here that how don't these guys get out of the shackle of the poverty? Why generations after generations are working in the mica mine? What is going on? Why don't parents say that we will not work? And the answer goes off to, I don't know how many of you have heard it, and I've written there, does it resonate with your culture? We have got a caste system in India. We call it the caste. And the problem of the caste system is, it gives you that hierarchy, right? It's a hierarchy of the caste system. Okay, there you go. Very good. Okay, let me explain it. It is a very, very complex phenomena of segregating people from social life and activity. Now, for example, the Indian caste system is divided into the top one, which is Brahmins, who have always been the rulers, power, knowledge. Unfortunately, I'm a Brahmin myself. So we have always kind of, exploited a lot of people who are below us. The knowledge, we have always kept it to us like a holy grail system. The Kshatriyas are the warrior class. They are the ruler class. The Vaishyas are the farmers, traders, and merchant class. And then we have got Shudras, who are supposed to be laborers, all by birth. If you are born in any of these, you will continue doing that work all your life. Your children will do the same work. They cannot break out of the shackles. The children who are in the mica mines, unfortunately, don't even fall into all the four. They are at the bottom, which is Dalit. We call them untouchable. Do not touch them. They do not belong to this society. They are outcast. So all the MNEs take advantage of it. It's amazing. Sorry, I do have a question. So the Brahmins are the Brahmins at the highest. It's by religion you are, and by birth you are a Brahmin. So you are supposed to be basically the harbingers of knowledge. So all the priestly activities in the temples, these are the people who will do it. By birth, they have been given the power to do it. Doesn't make sense, right? The rest of them cannot do any of that. It goes back to race. I'm sure each one of you in the room can resonate somewhere from wherever you are coming from, that how social inequality has been on the rise. Possibly it can go back to the system of the caste system like in India. I had some hands there, yeah.
How can you prevent people from moving on through these castes? Because if you're born to Shudras and you had your way in education, your IQ was high, so you must move up to the Brahmins. How do you prevent the movement between social classes?
So we are not talking about movement. We're talking about exploitation of a certain kind of people just because, unfortunately, they belong to that certain kind of... So we are not asking about moving Dalits to that. We're not talking about that. The question here is that why is a certain section of people in the world who are below poverty level, that 60% of the people today in the world are below poverty level. Out of that, a lot of them might actually, even in your context and countries, be very underprivileged. That's a discussion, right? And the discussion here is that how organizations take advantage of that to make profits. Does it make sense now? That's the storyline I'm bringing in, and I'm linking that to the SDG. And I ask you and urge you all to think a little bit more about this SDG where everybody, SDG, yeah, it means climate, it means gender. No, everybody's forgotten about that SDG 10 here, which is massive. I propose today a call for developing more cases on social issues and management, cases on modern slavery, caste, race. You will be shocked to hear I don't see many cases on these topics at all. Ivy School has only started off with cases on these topics. Last I saw was 4 different case studies published in Ivy on social inequality issues. And there has been no case studies on these issues in any other publication. Coming to that, yeah. Uh-huh.
Why? Because I've mentioned certain brands by name.
Okay.
That's the question.
So we will have to ask that question. We have got Vicky there. We have got, where is Rami gone? Oh, he's left. Okay, so he's escaped already. But we have to ask them this question, that how can we publish cases on this topic, you know? But I want to share a little bit about my story, about how I am developing cases on this. And just to share my story, the issues that I'm having, the kind of problems I'm sitting with. So if I can just share with that, and maybe that will kind of help you think through a bit more. So we, of course, want to have a lot of impact. Impact is a word which has been used since morning, and I've enjoyed all the sessions today. What we have missed out, I think the word is meaningful as well. So this kind of a research is not only impactful, but it is hugely meaningful, because you can really make a change to lives of people. So for example, if my agenda right now is to work with all the different companies who are sourcing mica from India, Jharkhand, if they can actually do something about these tribal people, if they can help in some kind of corporate social responsibility, if they can, let's say, help them get educated, the children, get them better jobs, you know, that's a big win-win for me, right? At the end of the day, that's impact. So somebody said, what does impact mean? For me, it means to make a difference in somebody's life. And that's what impact is so powerful through this SDG. Now, how can we do that for social issues and business management cases for sensitive topic? And I'm going to answer those questions to you guys. It's basically because of the fact it's super hard. If you want to really delve into these topics, it's not easy. Your life will change, literally, I'm telling you. You're not just writing a case about one company and how they have changed some kind of a dimension inside, just talking about just innovation and things. This is a very hard terrain you're getting in. And I have just finished writing a paper which is going for publication, which is all about how I have struggled exiting from my fieldwork. I am not able to exit. Somebody says, Shilpi, what is going on? You're done with the work, right? I said, no. I live with it every day. I can't exit from that field, you see? And that's a very, very different thing that you're talking about here. It's not just another story, another narrative, you're doing it. It is kind of, it becomes your life. You get really attached to this kind of a topic. What do you do? Now, this is all my ideas. I've been doing this work for 5 years now. And these are my tips if you are interested in getting into this kind of a research. Number one, a professor at Warwick Business School, his name is Harry Sukas. He told me, and he's written a paper, this is one of the best-selling paper at, I think it's an AMR, don't simplify, rather complexify. He said some issues can't be simplified. If you look at it very simply, you will never get answers. Complexify an issue, and that's where you will get the right answers. Ask the right questions, complexify them to get the right answers. That's what a social issues in business management topic is all about. Practitioners' focused approach is very, very important. Yeah, can I have your question?
I'm here. I'm confused. Are you trying to say that we become a bit grayish in our opinion, or hide it? What do you mean by that?
Critical. being critical. So complexifying something
No,
basically.
critical is something else. I think when you say don't sensitize it, what do you mean by that? Being moderately gray?
Okay, so you're talking about the next one. All right, let me just explain to you. Let me just come to that next point, please. Yeah. So the first thing is don't simplify, complexify the issue, which basically means try and be a bit more critical about things and you get better answers in social issues and management. Provide solutions to the organization. This is another professor who told me that when you delve into these kind of research, do not just, the word, sensationalize these things. So companies will never like you. They will, so going back to your answer, if I ask Sephora, for example, that how do you tackle child labor, issues of all these tribals in the supply chain, it's how you frame the question, right? You don't immediately go and hit at them and just say, hey, you got child labor in your supply chain. How come you are not even talking about it, you know? But New York Times has posted, Washington Times have posted about you guys. Lush was into a lot of negative news about it, you see? They will never tell you that story. So don't sensationalize anything. We are educators, we're not journalists, right? We're academics. Our job here is, there is an issue of child labor sitting with a big company such as Sephora or Estee Lauder. They will get into bad reputation. They have a social responsibility here. How can I help them to address that issue in a very matured way, which will be win-win for them, and that will also get them a good reputation later on, you see? So just to share with you, Clinic told us that they were not even aware there was child labor happening at the bottom level of the supply. They were not aware of it for the longest period of time. We can either believe them or we cannot believe them. It's up to us. But we thought, let's believe them for a minute, okay? Even if they are lying, let's still believe it. And let's start off with a discussion that, you know it, what will you tell me, what will you do about it, you know? Can we solve it together so that you don't get that bad reputation in news media and everywhere there? So the tackling of this kind of a case is the key. And that's the reason I'm saying ask the right questions.
I'm having a problem here, if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
I had the research, as you know, the Middle East now is having war everywhere, and there was something I've written, and I used certain terms which are true: genocide, not war, not conflict. Certain, something that black and white, you cannot deny it. It was rejected. It was not published.
So I'm hearing two people saying that it was rejected, social issues, yeah?
I'm trying to understand what you're saying because you are trying to help us publish what we want, but I really don't know how to do it. I rejected changing the paper because terms are terms. Genocide is genocide. Killing people is killing people. So I can't.
So was it rejected because you used the word, or was?
I cannot quote it.
Yeah.
Quote it. It is like that.
Yeah.
So how could we do it here?
Well, let's have a conversation later on, of course. I would love to see your paper, and if I can help you, more than happy to do it. But maybe there could be some more underlying reasons, I believe, which could have got you guys rejected. So definitely let's have a look at it, because there are cases now being accepted on social issues in management and these kind of social inequality. It is on the rise. So maybe you might find more audiences now than you found them 5 years back. Possibly. I'm just saying, possibly it could be that nobody was hearing us 5 years back. Maybe now, with the rise of people more and more talking about these kind of topics, you might have a better audience. But definitely we'll have a talk. There, I can see a hand up.
Yeah, if you allow me. I'm a bit confused. Why are you categorizing the child labor under the umbrella of goal number 10? Because it's more of reducing inequalities, but I can't see how you are relating this to reducing inequalities when we are talking about child labor. Because, for example, in Egypt, if I might share the initiative that was implemented in Egypt, that they have incorporated those with the special needs because they were a minor group that were not having equal opportunity, equal chances to have equal opportunity in the recruitment. But when we talk about child labor, we are talking about a law that has to be enforced in action. It is that simple. So I won't consider the child labor as a minority, or I have to raise the flag of raising the equality between the children. And the other question, sorry?
I think you got the answer there, but just to tell you, that's a great question.
The second question, how can you relate the impact of such a case study on a topic like this? Yani, can you tell what was the impact of these case studies? What were the actions that were taken on the ground to be impactful, to be that impactful? Because I see that case study writing is more of a solution to a business problem, not to the laws and the regulation that would be issued. It has to be more than this.
So have you realized I didn't even talk about regulation till now? I haven't even talked about laws at all till now. I haven't. I am only talking about the role of organizations in tackling social issues in business management. I am not even going into regulation. You answered her quite well. Child labor here is just a topic issue. The major issue here is social inequality that's going back to the caste system of India. And that is the reason it is sitting under SDG 10, because SDG 10 talks about inequality. So the whole idea is, why is there child labor? Child labor is the end result. We are seeing children working. And then you think, why are they working? And then you think, why were their parents also child labor? And then you are thinking, it's going on for generations. They are still there. Nothing has changed in their lives. 7 generations working under this. Why? It goes back because we live in a very unequal world. It's going back to the system of the caste system, the hierarchies, and the way we think about people.
Then we are comparing the children as a group to what group? What is our benchmark to consider the child labor as a minor group that are not taking their equal opportunity? We are comparing them to what? What's our benchmark of comparison?
So we are talking about, why are children working and dying in derelict mines? That's my research question. Does it make sense?
It's more of social status, economic circumstances, but this doesn't mean that we are considering this group of child labor as underprivileged.
But it is. So that's what I'm saying, that my research proves that they are underprivileged. And that is the reason I'm talking about SDG 10.
Oh, yeah. Why are they working at the first?
Yeah?
I have a comment, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love these discussions. Please keep it coming on. Absolutely.
The caste system in India has been there for
centuries.
Yeah, and that is why it relates to reduced inequalities, because that is the reason, the caste system itself.
Yes, of course.
So for exactly that, there you go. For a different reason, possibly. It could be for a different. This reason is very different.
It's the same reasons, because they are.
I'm asking. Then we have to search for the root cause, the main problem, why they are being used as child labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we're going to tackle this group, that why you are using them as labor, we are not treating the core problem.
So the core problem is the cost. We can have a chat after it if you don't mind. Yeah, let's
just
move on with it.
One comment, please.
Thank you.
One comment, please. One of the implications for such cases is bad reputation about the organization itself. And this is fire back into the organization and destroying its PR activities, because we had something like this with Balenciaga 2 years ago, and they were charged by promoting and supporting child exploitation. So these cases has a real impact on the economy and on the reputation, and it translates into downgrading the position of the company, going down with the shareholder equity, going down with the share price. And inequality here is because it's a basic right for the child to have its childhood and be educated and have a good life. So these children have inequality because they are deprived from the basic rules of having a rooftop for them, a food, and then an education. So that's why it's an inequality.
Sure, that's a great analogy and a logic. Yeah. So if I just need to talk a little bit about how we are looking at this when we are looking at making a case study, hopefully which will be published. So we don't want to sensationalize it, as we said. We really want to go into the depth and understand what the problems are. And what these companies are telling us is, can you help us sort it out? That's the thing, you see. So can you please help us to solve this problem? Because we don't understand the Indian customs. We don't understand the Indian culture. So we are still making our policies, for example, in New York or in Europe sitting, but the suppliers are not able to understand that. So around the supply chain, there is an issue about communication. And also what we figured out was the companies are struggling to understand cultural issues in specific countries. And that makes a great case, I feel. That how can companies communicate better? How can companies actually, so when we talk about impact, we are, for example, doing workshop with these companies now, right? So what we're doing is we are not just, okay, give me a case steel order, and that's it. We just want to publish it, and that's it. No. That's the start of a relationship with these companies. Because we really want to educate them about these kind of social issues. We want to help them to make better decisions, to make better policies, which will not get them into any kind of negative news, which they have been struggling with. The next bit is challenges and opportunities, and that's the last bit. Massive challenges sitting in doing this kind of a research. Massive challenges, right? So as I said, starting from how do you get access into the company? That was a question which was asked. We took 4 years. 4 years, literally, it has taken us to build up this relationship with these companies, for them to open up, tell us their story, tell us how much of problems there's going on. How can you help us? Now, what we did was, so getting access to your organizations can be super tricky, very difficult. How can you navigate your way through? You have to spend time. And that's the reason I think social issues in management is a very hard area of research. It's very fulfilling, but it takes your time and energy to build that stakeholders relationship. Opportunities. We talked about in the morning that we are looking for something new in cases. I've been hearing that. This is a great opportunity. The way I look at it, we haven't talked about this kind of theory in business ever. Theories such as, so I'm going back again to the root causes, which we said, okay, children are working there. What's the problem? Of course, I go back to the caste system. Maybe in your context, you could find out, I don't know, I mean, somebody told me, yeah, we have so much of child labor issues even in Egypt. Does it go back to those theory, post-colonial theory, subaltern theory, right? More critical theory, these are the critical bits. These are all new kind of theories which are not mainstream business theory, with all due regards to Michael Porter and Christensen. But we are moving way too much towards, I think, just money, efficiency, profit, profit, profit. I think we have somewhere forgotten to bring in these theories to actually analyze social issues. And I really want to encourage you all to look into these kind of theories and build up and see whether actually these theories really you want your students to read it in your teaching note and understand the complexities of social issues that's sitting with organizations. Just to share with you how did we navigate through this kind of a research, the complexities that we were sitting on. So first we went, talked to these companies, we built up the relationship. First thing, we did a journal article. So we published a bit on Journal of International Business Studies, JIBS. It was more taking about how do these companies from the headquarter all the way till the lower end of the bottom of the supply chain make sense about sustainability, social inequality, these kind of issues, child labors, farmers' livelihood, those kind of problems. We wrote those kind of business cases. This is a case study, actually, which we published in a 4-star journal. We did conferences. So this summer, we did a conference with the University of Sussex for modern slavery. We have got a fantastic group of global scholars. You will be happy to hear there are 75 PhDs who are working on modern slavery issues at this moment across the world. The whole group of cohort is really increasing. People are delving into these kind of research to see what's the role of companies in it. We did those. I have a book on modern slavery coming up next year in 2025 summers with my esteemed colleague who teaches law. This was more from the regulation perspective at Harvard Law School, which will be published by the Cambridge University publication next year. Now, all this groundwork has been done for the longest period of time. Along with this comes case studies. So this is more theory, and this is how I think is the best way, and it is more outcomes, you see. So when this is rich data, massive rich data. What do you do with this kind of a data, you see? So of course you can have a journal article out, you can have a book, and you write a lot of good case studies, which these companies will actually be using it within their own companies to train their own, and that's what they're doing. So one of the cases we have written for a company, they are using it in their training programs. And that's super impactful for me, see, right? So I just wanted to share with you all this new domain area. I want to encourage you all to give it a thought about whether you would like to indulge into a research such as this, which is super hard, but super fulfilling as well at the end of the day. We do need a lot of more scholars to work on areas of social inequality, a very untouched area, unfortunately, in the SDGs sitting along there. So give it a think. If you have any questions, I'm absolutely happy to talk more about it from my own case publishing, some tips to do more of social issues. How do you write them? So super, super happy to answer any questions from you. I'm not going to keep you guys waiting. I know everybody is a bit tired. You need coffee. So let's open up for discussions later on if you want to. And if you have any questions, stay back. Thank you very much. Angie, am I on time? Thank you to all the organizers. I think a big round of applause.